fear. That's the only way I can describe it.
This is WURD Radio.
96.1 FM.
And 900 AM WURD. Philadelphia. Independent.
Black media.
The views and opinions expressed by the guests, listeners, and hosts of any program on WURD Radio do not necessarily reflect those of ownership, management, or advertisers of this station.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Chris Murray Report on WURD. And as always, got a lot to cover today. Just starting with a whole lot of things. The Sixers are playing without Joel Embiid, and aside from Wednesday's loss to the Milwaukee Bucks, they played rather well. So we'll get into that a little bit today. A couple of things happened earlier in the week that I wanted to talk about. Well, one thing that happened, as you all know, one of the greatest middleweight boxers of all time, Marvin Hagler, passed away. He was one of the great all-time boxers in this game. He came along in that era when you had Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns, and Roberto Duran, Wilfred Benitez. He fought all those guys, and the one guy he did not beat in that situation was Sugar Ray Leonard, but I still considered him the best out of all those fighters. And as much as I love Ray Leonard, and Ray Leonard's, my homeboy from the state of Maryland, hey, he was one of the all-time greats. But I gotta say, Marvin Hagler dominated just about everybody in the ring except Ray Leonard. And a lot of people probably thought that Leonard won that. I mean, some people thought Leonard won the fight. A lot of people thought Hagler won the fight. And I remember, my roommates in D.C. Back in the day, and we were watching tapes of that fight. We had seen the fight, and we watched tapes of that fight, and we would argue for hours who really won that fight. We play this round, play that round, and say, nah, man, Ray won it. Nah, man, Marvin won it. And that was one of those boxing matches that linger on through the ages. And I'm bringing back Josephine Baker today to talk about that. He's our guy from Ring Magazine and boxing history and all that. So we'll talk about that today. Something fun today. We're also going to be bringing on John Mitchell at about noon to talk a little bit about Carson Wentz's parting shots at Philadelphia, and I'm gonna talk a little bit, Jordan. A lot of people, you were younger, you remember the McNabb era. I mean, you're young enough to remember Donovan, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. You're young enough to remember Donovan. And Donovan brought a kind of divisiveness to this city that it wasn't necessarily along racial lines or anything like that. There are people who hated Donovan and people who loved Donovan. Mm-hmm. Donovan won. I mean, Donovan was booed, and somehow Donovan kind of didn't wear that on his sleeve a wee bit, to the point of annoyance to some people. But Donovan, I think, in my estimation, a lot of people will disagree with me, and that's fine. But in my estimation, he was the greatest quarterback in the history of the franchise. They won more games. He won a lot of playoff games. I believe I'm maybe one out of I'm probably a very small minority, and I get that. I believe he merits Hall of Fame, consideration, despite what guys like Max Kellerman or even Stephen A. Smith would say. I personally believe that, because to me, he was, between Brady and between Manning, he was the guy who, maybe he didn't, he didn't win a championship. I mean, in the case of Manning just had Peyton Manning in many respects in the Super Bowl against the Bears. I didn't think he played all that well, but he was the quarterback, so they gave it to him. And then when he was with the Broncos, he, like I say again, he has Von Miller to thank for that Super Bowl trophy, in my opinion. McNabb, I think, won a lot of games, and a lot of people are going to disagree. I can feel it now. He won a lot of games, won a lot of division titles, basically with the worst set of receivers I've ever seen a quarterback, outside of the 1 year they had with T.O., and he went to the Super Bowl, and T.O. became T.O. and acted a fool, and McNabb probably should have helped him get a little bit of money. I mean, he could have done some things. I don't know if there was some people say McNabb was being selfish. I don't know about that. It divided the Eagles locker room, but McNabb did win a lot of those games in situations where he really didn't have anybody. It wasn't really towards the last championship game in which, a lot of people, I will still remember when the last NFC championship game that McNabb threw the Eagles to. Eagles were down in the first half. Yeah, they were getting killed on both sides of the ball. McNabb brings them back in that game. A lot of people, they went in the second half. And, you were expecting the defense to step up and basically stop Kurt Warner and Larry Fitzgerald. They could not. All due respect to Brian Dawkins and the Eagles secondary they had that year, they could not stop the juggernaut that was Larry Fitzgerald. And then the Eagles get the last drive, and I think McNabb actually missed the pass. But then on fourth down, I think it was Curtis Conway, who dropped the ball on fourth down. And it was also probably, you could have argued also, there was a pass interference penalty on that play. But the thing is that the guy drops the ball on fourth down. I'm going to my late mother-in-law's house, so she was still alive at the time. We're going over there, and all of a sudden I'm listening to a sports talk radio station in Philly. I ain't gonna say which one it was, and they were talking about how McNabb blew the game, and I damn near ran through a traffic light because I was like, "Are you kidding? Did you watch that game?" Yeah, he missed it. I mean, but on fourth down, okay, you can miss. I've seen lots of quarterbacks miss guys. I've seen a lot of quarterbacks overthrow guys, miss guys on plays, come back, hit the first down. But when on fourth down, the ball is in the receiver's hands, that ain't the quarterback's fault. And there was a bunch of people, including a couple of friends of mine, who I had most amount of respect for. I called this show. I was like, dude, what game were you guys watching? Well, in the first half, he struggled in the first half. The whole team struggled in the first half. The whole freaking team struggled in the first half, okay? Wasn't just him. And then, I had one of my buddies saw McNabb was a weak. I said, does anybody know anything about football here? He, God brings you back from this deficit. And because his receiver on fourth down can't hold on to a pass, he's to blame?
That doesn't make sense. No.
I'm sitting here and part of it, and I'm wondering if Donovan McNabb, did he go around, because I heard some things, on the rumor board. Did he take somebody's girlfriend on the side or something like that? He's a married man, but rumors that, I don't know, I can't confirm, but people rumors, I heard things, and I don't know if they're true or not, but the way people went at this guy, oh, he was weak, he was this, they go back to, nobody actually produced any tape of him throwing up in the Super Bowl. I never saw it. He may have thrown up in the huddle. We don't know. Or he might have been maybe not in the best of shape and everything, but he still passed for 300 yards that game. But, threw 3 touchdowns, threw some interceptions. But at the end of the day, it's like, when you look at him in aggregate compared to the guy they just traded, or the guy they just let go or bought out or whatever, traded it. McNabb looks pretty good. And the thing about it, I'm not saying that McNabb did not have his days, but at the same time, everybody tried to install Carson Wentz as this savior. Turned out to be Nick Foles.
You got that right.
Turned out to be Nick.
Mm-hmm.
Nick, that's the guy. Nick Foles will never want for a drink. Just like in Baltimore, Jacoby Jones or Joe Flacco will never want for a drink because of the Rocky Mountain Miracle. Nick Foles will never want for a drink in this town because of the Philly play. I was in Minneapolis. As you see in my background, you see my back. You're on Facebook, and you see my background of that. I took that at the Super Bowl. Okay, I was there. I was in the press box that day in Minneapolis. Cold as an MF, so to speak. Can't say on the air, but it was cold. It was cold in Minneapolis. But man, that was one of the great football games I had ever covered. That was just a great game. Mm-hmm. And Nick Foles deserves all the accolades and all this other stuff. He will always be. And I think that was also the ruin of Carson Wentz's time in Philly. That was just, because somehow Carson Wentz was on that road to being that Super Bowl quarterback.
Yep.
He was on the road to being that great quarterback. And a funny thing happened in L.A. A funny thing happened at the Coliseum. There was a movie called "Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Coliseum." It came out in the 60s. But a funny thing happened at the Coliseum, and he got hurt, and he spent most of his time being hurt and all this other stuff. And then he wanted to do things, as it was well purported by a lot of people, including my buddy Joe Sanliquito and others, that he became kind of a cancer in the locker room, for lack of a better word. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the guys didn't play as well for him as perhaps they should have. Maybe, I don't know, there was some things, on the inside. Everybody wanted to deny it, but it happened, and the thing is that people wanted Wentz to succeed so bad that when Joe Sanliquito came out with that story, somebody put, cow manure or whatever kind of manure in his mailbox. That's how much, people wanted to see Wentz succeed in this town, in Philadelphia. They wanted him to succeed. Heck, I wanted him. Everybody wants to see your quarterback succeed. I don't care what color he is. Yeah, nobody was a bigger Joe Flacco fan than I was in Baltimore. I like Joe Flacco. He played there. I saw him play at University of Delaware, which is not too far from where I'm staying right now. Mm-hmm. And, at the end of the day, Jordan, and by the way, Jordan, forgive me. Remind me, I'm going to thank you. You've been doing a great job. Let me just say that. I got to say that off the top to you, man, because you've done a great job of producing this show.
I appreciate it.
You do a great job. I should say it at the end credits, and that's my bad. So don't shoot me for that. It's just I forget stuff.
Oh no, you good. I don't take it personally. So you good.
Yeah, man. Because part of like last week I was grading papers. I was in the midst of grading papers.
Yeah.
And, students don't like you when you grade papers, man. Well, I thought I deserved it. Everybody deserves an A. I wish I could give A's,
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I just kind of feel like, people wanted Wentz to succeed. People wanted him, black people wanted him to succeed. Well, it's not a racial thing. It's not a racial thing at all. But there might be some undertones of that, and I'll find that out from our listening audience. But at the same time, I think people wanted him to succeed. Ladies and gentlemen, I forgot to tell you the numbers to call in the show. 215-634-8065, 1-866-361-0900 if you're calling outside the Delaware Valley area. I want to get your views on some of the things that Wentz said. He said he had a tough time in Philly, And yeah, Philly is a tough town in terms of the media. From what my media colleagues were telling me, because I was, let me see, where was, no, I think I was, I had been up all night Wednesday because, no, boy, I had to do my grade. I'm on spring break, yet I had to get papers graded. And so I was up, and so I was kind of taking the day off because I was just like really tired. And from what I understand that the Indianapolis media tried to freeze out the Philly media from asking Carson Wentz questions.
Yep,
I
I
have
heard
a
about
problem
that.
with that. I have a problem with that as a journalist.
Mhm.
I think, I think that, everybody, I guess because of the previous president and because of a lot of things, people hate us. People hate us in the media. People hate us in the media. They hate the questions we ask, and they always want to call us fake news, or if we come up with certain things such as facts, people don't like to see facts. And, I get that, but see, that's the level of kind of coddling that I think, and the Philadelphia media really, really wanted Carson Wentz to succeed. I think people tried to pump him up more. Jordan, am I right? Do you think I'm right, or
No,
if I'm wrong, do you think?
Oh no, you're definitely right about that. Of course.
They wanted
Yeah.
to see him succeed.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but there were a lot of things. Sometimes you get blinded. A lot of times, even with black quarterbacks, I want to see certain black quarterbacks succeed. But
Yeah.
if they suck, I'm the first one to say, dude, you like Haskins, dude, you suck, and you didn't prepare. And the thing is, he was in. This guy was taking selfies after getting his first win instead of being on the field and kneeling. Stupid stuff like that.
Yeah, come on, man.
Come on, dude.
I don't understand. But yeah, I'm with you on that. I want to see certain black quarterbacks succeed. I want to see Deshaun, of course, Jalen Hurts, but I want to see Deshaun Watson succeed too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I saw something about us being interested in him. I was like, no, I don't want him to come here because I think he has a better opportunity elsewhere, like San Francisco.
I think he does too. I think Deshaun Watson. I don't know if Watson would handle being in Philly.
Yeah.
You got to have a certain mentality to deal with Philadelphia.
Yeah,
and you got to have a thick skin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, also.
Seriously. Go ahead.
Yeah, and also the situation he's in with Houston, he's going to be back. He's going to deal with that here too, because we're in rebuilding mode, so that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, here is a difficult place. If you can handle here, Charles Barkley, if you can handle Allen Iverson being here, if you can handle it, hey, you can handle some of the stuff that that comes out of our mouths and whatnot. And I'm talking about the fans. Some of the stuff, because here's the thing, and I see this in Baltimore, I see this in Pittsburgh, I see this in maybe in Cleveland, but more so Philly, and to a certain extent Baltimore. It's for some reason the so-called interesting how blue-collar workers are always considered to be white, when there's in this town in Philadelphia there are a lot of black blue-collar workers, a lot of Latino and Asian blue-collar workers in this town. Okay, it's funny how those groups never get included amongst blue-collar workers, but there are some people who didn't like guys like Mike Schmidt, who was white, and they didn't like certain guys in this town who made it, or Eric Lindros, guys who made it look easy. Okay, and if you're that good and you make it look easy, that's called greatness. If you, that's the thing. Allen Iverson, I think, the younger generation of black kids, white kids, Latinos loved Allen Iverson. Hip-hop, the hip-hop generation, which I'm kind of loosely a part of. I'm kind of in that tweener baby boomer Generation X thing. I respect the AI. I love the AI. I love this game. I love this art. I love the fact that that man was willing to go through hell in a handbasket. But a lot of my friends in the media weren't happy. I think there's a couple of people I know that every year, we got to trade Allen Iverson. And I'm like, trade him for what? And the problem was they never brought guys around. They kept saying Allen couldn't play with anybody. And I don't believe that to be true. And I think, Allen was kind of frustrated about the fact that they didn't get guys.
Yeah.
And and I'm not saying Allen didn't make his mistake, like the whole practice thing. But I understand. I mean, although that is still one of the great sound bites. He's going to be talking about practice, not the game. Practice. I mean, but that's and the thing is, Allen made a point. Now, and he said, yeah, and a lot of times he's hurt. He was hurt, and a lot of times, I think that Allen got kind of frustrated. I think, especially after Pat Croce left. I think Pat Croce was the only guy who I think understood Allen Iverson. Out of all the people there, because I interviewed Pat Croce, right around the time that after he was traded. And basically he said, look, we had to get guys in there around him. And, when he went through certain things, he kind of knew how to talk to him in a way that, he could kind of be reasonable, get Allen sometimes to be reasonable. And, it happens. And as far as I'm concerned, the way I look at that whole situation, I think the kids, more than the media, your generation, y'all appreciated Allen better than cats in my generation. Some of y'all, a lot of people, a couple of, like I say again, a couple of the reporters in there were very fair. And I remember Iverson sparked arguments in the press box at the Sixers game, the press room at the Sixers game.
That doesn't surprise me.
I still remember, what was the guy? I think the guy was from Comcast Channel 8, and I think Mike Silsky, who's now with the Inquirer. And one day they were in the press box, and they were, like, going back and forth. And I'm sitting up there, like, over Iverson. Howard Eskin and all those guys, they hated it. There are people who just hated Allen Iverson. I think Eskin got sued or something like that, and lost and whatnot. and the whole thing. Iverson brought that out, and I guess I'm kind of going to this thing where certain athletes. Sometimes we don't appreciate our athletes at the time that they're here. And, I was reading somebody's column that, hey, at least when Lindros left, he had won an MVP. And people didn't appreciate Lindros. People didn't appreciate Mike Schmidt when he was here, when he was during his days with the Phillies. Schmidt got booed a lot. And I'm saying, what is up with that? For as much as, like I say, Baltimore to this day, my hometown, I'm not saying Baltimore is better. I'm not saying it. Please don't misconstrue that. But a lot of towns love their heroes, love their athletes, and love the guys who play for them. And I don't get, because, Schmidt, like I said, Schmidt made it look easy. Schmidt played his game. Although, oddly enough, Ryan, but like I say, this generation of fans appreciated Howard, Rollins, and Chase Utley. I like Chase Utley. I think in some respects there's some folks who try to elevate Chase Utley, and I felt that there was one year that if Chase Utley hadn't gotten hurt, he'd have won an MVP. Although people would have been biased against Philly guys winning it because Rollins and Howard had won it, but Utley was a hell of a player. I like Chase Utley.
Yep.
Quiet guy. Chase. Chase Utley's one of the few guys that I actually got some things out of Chase Utley. I did a piece on Bonds, and I spent a few minutes. Chase was actually cool. Quiet as kept. Chase was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So we got to go to break now, right? We got to go to break.
Yeah.
Okay. So we come back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope to see you guys on the phone with me. You're listening to 96.1 FM, 900 AM WURD, the Chris Murray Report. Will be right back.
Small business owners are navigating an evolving small business landscape brought on by coronavirus. However, their resilience is reflected in Bank of America's 2020 Small Business Owner Report, a nationwide survey on 1,000 small business owners, which found that nearly 1/4 of small business owners took steps in 2020 to retool their offerings and or leverage their resources to support relief efforts in their communities. While many saw an impact in their bottom line last year, small business owners anticipate a strong post-pandemic environment, and 79% believe small businesses will return to be the backbone of the U.S. economy. Inspired by the small business owners facing unprecedented challenges, Bank of America continues their commitment to help small business owners in Philadelphia with the necessary resources to sustain and grow. For more information, visit bankofamerica.com.
Okay, Her's new fire potato chips and cheese curls, they are spicy. Whew, they're hottest snacks yet, hold on. Whew, but you know, it's not just heat. There's some nice sweet and savory stuff going on too. Ooh, there's that heat again. It burns, but it burns so tasty. Ooh, that's hot. Find Her's Fire Snacks at your store today. Whew, taste the flavor, feel the heat, break out the Her's.
Jefferson Health offers no-cost COVID-19 testing sites at St. Raymond of Pinafort Church. Testing is on Thursdays and Saturdays. A second testing location has been added at Richard Allen Preparatory Charter School. Testing is on Wednesdays and Fridays. For testing hours and more information, visit jeffersonhealth.org/community testing.
The WURD Radio Newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on WURD Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the WURD Radio Newsletter. You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media.
Okay, we are back. The Chris Murray Report is right back. Well, and so here's my question, or among several questions of the day, that I'm going to throw out before I get to Good Trip of North Philadelphia, before I get to him. A couple of things. One, Marvin Hagler, who won that fight between him and Ray Leonard? And there were also a couple of, I want to say it was Benny Briscoe, one of those guys, a couple of Philly guys. One of the Philly guys who beat Marvin Hagler in the ring. And I think it beat him at the Blue Horizon. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to bring that up today. Who won that fight between Ray Leonard and Marvin Hagler? And was Hagler the greatest of that particular generation? Number two, if you could kind of compare Carson Wentz versus Donovan McNabb, who was the most or least popular among those two? And number three, will the Sixers, we can talk about the Sixers too, because the Sixers are the second week without Joel Embiid. When he'll be back, it will be anybody's guess, but it's good that maybe that we're resting Embiid, or that the Sixers are, not we, I'm on the team. The Sixers are resting Embiid at this point. Richard from North Philadelphia, what's on your mind, man?
Hi, Chris. Good morning to you and Jordan. Yeah, all right, as you talk about McNabb and Wentz. Well, Wentz was anointed, to be the one on his way to be one of the Eagles' greatest quarterback. Many people out there thought that Carson Wentz coming would surpass McNabb, but unfortunately, because of circumstances, personal and otherwise, team, it seems as though that Carson Wentz now is just damaged goods. I think McNabb is still the best. Yeah. Still the best right now, better than Carson Wentz, But I saw his press conference on TV the other day, Carson Wentz, like he's, to me, it seems like he's much settled now, I guess a little bit, getting away from Philadelphia, and like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Marcus Hayes in the Daily News and Inquirer basically said that Carson engineered his way out after he was benched. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that came out of this press conference is that Wentz's press conference is that he was going to be a better teammate, which I think is revealing on all kinds of levels, because I think that, he should have been a good teammate while he was here. And the last thing, and like I say again, folks in our circles, in our media circles in Philadelphia, really went after Josephine Baker for that story. And now 2 years later, everybody's confirming everything that he reported. But, man, people went after him. Like I say, folks went as far as to shove manure in my man or whatever. Somebody can say on it. I can't say on the air. But they put, excrement of whatever animal or whatever in the man's mailbox for writing that story. And that told me that's how much Wentz was revered. Because if I'm not mistaken, he was like the next great quarterback. He was supposed to be the next great quarterback until that particular. If you're watching on Facebook, the setting behind me, until that particular Super Bowl when Wentz, when Wentz won that, when Nick Foles won that Super Bowl, and so I don't know. But then, but how do you regard McNabb though? Tell me how Philly. I want to know how Philly fans, Black Philly fans. Well, I don't care who you are, but how did you guys feel about what was the general feeling about McNabb? Because a lot of people, and let's be honest, and it wasn't a racial thing, but a lot of people didn't like McNabb. Something about McNabb turned even a lot of Black fans off. Were you turned off by McNabb on one level?
No. I think that the only thing about McNabb was when he got booed when he was drafted. But other parts from that, I grafted to McNabb. When McNabb came here, and what he did. I didn't really have any, anything against McNabb myself. No. Yeah.
A lot of people did not like McNabb while he was here. Okay. Now, I understand that, and thanks for the call. Who do you think won? One more thing. Who won between Hagler and...
Well, I thought Hagler won that fight. Even though I like Sugar Ray Leonard, I wasn't too much of a Hagler person. I like Ray Leonard, but I thought that Hagler had won that fight. That's what I thought.
Okay. Yeah, everybody thought. I thought Leonard won, but you could argue that either way. Okay. Right. Before we thank you for the call, Richard, and always appreciate your call when you call in. Thank you very much. I gotta go. I'm gonna bring in Maurice from Southwest before I bring on Joe. And Maurice, what's your thoughts today? How are you today? First of all,
I am Chris Murray. I'm letting everybody know that. Now, listen, let me break this down to you. I'm going to make it fast. Listen. Leonard won the fight because he got in what's called his head. That's how he won the fight. Because, say the other guy's name. It just popped out my head for a second.
Marvin Hagler. Yeah,
Marvin Hagler came in there telling everybody he was going to destroy Leonard. He just wasn't going to beat Leonard. He was going to beat him down to the ground. And it didn't happen. So by Leonard still hanging around, being there, shuffling, joking, pushing him in the face, he won the mental game before. No matter how you looked at that fight, he won the mental game. Mm-hmm. And ever since that fight, was never the same.
Yeah. Well, he didn't fight. That was his last fight. If I'm not mistaken, that was his last fight.
It was a good fight, but the way that the other guy had put it, he was supposed to destroy Leonard, and it didn't happen. He thought he made people think that Leonard was a paper champion, and what happened was he stood there right in his face. He put his hands down. He kept saying, "I'm still here," and that destroyed it. That destroyed it. Now the other thing. Let me get to that. It's no match. I mean, come on. It's no way that Carson Wentz can even wash that man's drawers. Let's get this straight right. The man actually made it to a Super Bowl. He didn't win it, but he made it. The other guy made it to the playoffs, and that's the end of his career. He'll never be the same again. Because in his head, he's going to always have Carson Wentz. I mean, not Carson Wentz. He's going to have the other guy in his head that he went away with the prize. Now, let me get you. Now, I want to close with this. I want to get you to something real serious, okay? You know the murders that happened in Georgia, right?
Yeah.
Now, I have plenty of Asian friends. Matter of fact, I done had several Asian girlfriends, okay? But the problem with the United States is every time something like that happens to anybody else but somebody black, they always want to do something special for them. When it happens to us, it's just another day. I mean, black people been getting killed. Black people been getting murdered, like in South Carolina when they got killed in the church. And they always make light of it. They don't come up with no new bills saying we got to protect black people. They don't come up. I mean, I'm talking about years. I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about years. And then all of a sudden, the president and the vice president got to go there and visit. But they don't do that for us. Now we'll say that.
Now, didn't Obama go down to South Carolina after the South Carolina shootings? You remember when he sang, when he sang "Amazing Grace" and all that? He went down there, but you're right. There was no.
Listen, look, I'm talking about black on black. That was black on black. Do you really think that Reagan or the last man that was in office would have went down there?
No.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying. I'm just tired of. I have sympathy for them people, and me myself. My advice to them is, if these people are picking on you, strap up, because they don't have that problem in the black neighborhood. They live among us, and we go to these stores religiously all the time, and we start calling them names like Ma, and they call black older men uncle, and all that. That's in my neighborhood. That's all we have in my neighborhood is Asian stores. But what I'm saying is, these are white people doing this to them. And I'm not saying it's all bad white people. I'm just saying the people that's giving them this hassle about the flu are not black. It's white people. So all I'm saying is, and I told the Asian lady, she said to me, it's a shame what happened in Georgia. And you know what I told her? I said, it's funny. It's funny now. Now you know how a black person feels.
Right.
And she said, why you say that? I said, when you read in the paper about an unarmed black man or an unarmed child gets shot down, in your back of your mind, tell the truth, they must have did something wrong. But now that you see you have innocent people get murdered, now it's a big crisis. But you didn't think that way when you read that about us. That's all I had to say.
Yeah. Well, that's food for thought. I mean, people, I don't, how I feel about a lot of this is that, I mean, because there is that tension within the community between a lot of the Asian store owners and the African American community, and when those things happen, nobody seems to be concerned about us. I mean, but at the same time, I don't like to see what happened down there happen either, but it happens to us all the time. I mean, like I said, Dylan Roof goes in and shoots up a black church, and all this, and the cop and the police's reaction in the Atlanta situation is the same to the, they took Dylan Roof to Burger King to get him a Whopper with cheese and some fries and whatnot, and they're saying that the guy who shot up all those Asian people down in Atlanta, was, always just having a bad day. Like, come on. Please stop. Please. I don't want to hear that now. All right. We got Josephine Baker on with us, boxing writer extraordinaire, Boxing Writers Association, Ring Magazine. Guys seen about lots of pugilistic contests and everything. I always had to work in the word pugilistic because that's what the old classic boxing writers would say. People like Bert Sugar and all that, who Joe, we both knew when he was alive. But Marvin Hagler, what is his legacy? Just passed away. He's only 66 years old. And to me, he was the best fighter, Joe, out of that class with Ray Leonard, Hearns, Roberto Duran, Wilfred Benitez, let me see, who else won it? Maurice Hope and others, Vito Antuofermo, that whole crew. And, though Hagler was robbed in that first title fight against Vito Antuofermo, was a highway robbery of biblical proportions. But how do you view Hagler's legacy as a fighter?
He's an all-time great, Chris. Was my favorite fighter growing up as a kid. As a matter of fact, I think there was more than a few times my father stopped me from shaving my head.
I'd like to see you with a shave, although your head's big.
Yeah, I'm starting to shave head now, but it took me a while to catch up. You know, I just I wasn't there on the brink. I wasn't fighting with, to say, the losing battle. The thing that I identify with Marvin Hagler is here's a guy that got nothing. Here's a guy that had to come up, did not have the Olympic pedigree, did not have the gold medal, was not a pretty boy, like you know how he would always talk about Ray Leonard. I want to get that pretty boy. I'm going to get the pretty boy, and he did not. And by the way, people also forget, Chris, he has a very, very, very strong connection to Philadelphia. He came. Yeah,
I was going to say.
Yeah, he came up in the 70s.
He fought the Blue.
I mean, he lost to, I believe he lost to Blue Watts, and his last loss prior to Ray Leonard had been 11 years, and his last loss was to Roy the Worm Monroe in 1976 in the Spectrum. Right. That's where he came up. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you're right about that. He has a strong, and that's what I wanted to bring up here, is the fact that guy has a strong, he lost to a couple of guys here. And who knows that, and we got to go to break now, but I want to get with you on that, because Hagler was one of the, I mean, even though I thought Ray Leonard won that fight, to me, Hagler was still the best. Yeah, I still say that he was the best of that group. He was. And I mean, that might be a contradiction between the whatever you think but I thought that he was the best fighter of that era. We got to go to break. You listen to 96.1 FM, 900 AM WURD. The Chris Murray Report will be right back.
We do all we can to ensure our kids are happy, healthy, safe, and strong. Having high-quality, low-cost health insurance helps make that possible. With CHIP, your child can have medical, dental, eye care, and more for free or low cost. Whether you're self-employed, unemployed, or your employee benefits are just too expensive, CHIP is there for you to help your child be strong. CHIP Strong. Apply or renew today at 800-986-KIDS or go to chipcoverspakids.com.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
Hi, this is John.
Hi, this is Juanita, owners of JD's Auto Body and Painting. We're located at 6300 Wayne Avenue, right there at the intersection of Wayne and Washington Lane.
We really like to thank all you WURD listeners for the support that you've given our business, and we really hope to see you in the future.
JD, tell them about our products and services we have.
We have a new state-of-the-art paint shop along with our body shop and detail shop. We can help you with the dents and scratches from the winter season.
Come to JD's Auto Body and Painting. Come on out and check us out. We're still honoring that WURD 10% discount. Give us a call, 215-848-5949. Again, 215-848-5949.
Thanks again for supporting our business. We really appreciate you.
See you at JD's Auto Body and Painting.
Tune in every Saturday at 6 p.m. to Recovery Talk 101 with your host, Rick Ford, talking about addiction, treatment, and recovery. Right here on WURD Radio. The Black Words Book Club. WURD Radio's new monthly conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. For April, WURD Radio is partnering with the Free Library of Philadelphia and showcasing their pick for its annual citywide reading program, One Book, One Philadelphia, entitled The Tradition by Jericho Brown. Be sure to listen live, as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it. Tuesday, April 13th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for WURD members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit wordradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color. Livelihood. WURD Radio's new initiative, connecting Black Philadelphians with jobs, entrepreneurship resources, small business development information, and financial literacy tools. Learn more at wordworks.com. That's WURD, WORKS.com. And stay tuned to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent Black media.
Okay, we are back. We have Joe San Luquito on the line with us. We're talking about Marvin Hagler, who passed away on last Sunday. He was 66 years old, and I gotta add, and to me, he was probably, as I said, going into commercial. I thought that out of the era that included Tommy Hearns, Roberto Duran, Wilfred Benitez, and a whole bunch of other fighters, and John the Beast Mugabe, forgot about him, my Stop I Am show, Vidiana Ferrer, any of those guys. Hagler, to me, was front and center, the toughest fighter of all. And the thing is, I wish Ray would have given him, he deserved the second fight. He deserved a rematch. Ray didn't give it to him, and probably would have made money and all that. But I thought
Chris Ray was willing to give him the second fight. Hagler didn't want it.
Well, Hagler didn't want it. Really?
No, Ray saw the money. Ray saw the money. I mean, that was a huge, colossal fight. A major money maker, and Ray saw more dollar signs. Ray's not done. Whether Ray won or lost the second fight, Ray didn't. I mean, obviously Ray's going to give it his best, but Ray saw major dollar signs, major dollar signs. He wanted the second fight. It was Marvin that was so disgusted about the whole situation. Marvin even moved out of the country, lived in Italy for many years. He was that disgusted with what had happened.
Yeah.
So Marvin passed away Saturday. He passed away Saturday. And according to the family, it was natural causes, even despite the rumor that was out there that it was COVID-19 vaccinated related. No one knows for certain. But as far as we know, it was not, as far as we know right now, we're talking on March 20th, it was not COVID related. Again, I'm saying as far as we know. But he was a fantastic champion. He came up the really tough way. He came up in a way that was almost impossible to come up today because he had so many different fights, and he was the guy willing to go to the other guy's hometown. And again, a series of classics in the 1970s. We can, I mean, he was Brockton, Mass, and all that with the marvelous Marvin Hagler. But his roots, what created him, was the time he spent in Philly, was the number of fights that he had. He fought the great Benny Briscoe. Again, Roy the Worm Monroe handed him his previous defeat prior to losing 11 years later to Ray Leonard. And by the way, he took the Roy Monroe fight, and again, classic Marvin Hagler, took the Monroe fight on 2 weeks' notice. So again, you know and I know, what 2 weeks does. 2 weeks doesn't give you a hell of a lot of time to prepare. So he was up against it. And this was Marvin's career through most of his career. By this time, so he's fighting in the mid-70s against the likes of, like, again, Roy the Worm Monroe. And by that time, Marvin had already, 35, 36 fights. And we're talking the mid-70s by that time. Right. I mean, it's unheard of today. I believe, when he had beaten Marvin was 26-1-1. So Marvin already had 28 pro fights by the time he faced Roy the Worm Monroe. So that's what he came up the hard way, and in the end, it wound up working out well for him. He thought he got a real screw job in terms of the Ray Leonard fight, and it was. But you also have to know this, and you know this. This is who he fought in succession. This is like a murderer's row. He fights Mustafa Hamsho in '84. Comes back the next year to fight all-time. It's still to this day, and it will be forever, my all-time greatest fight. Hearns and Hagler. Hagler-Hearns. Those two will be, those names will be synonymous with one another. And then after that, he fights John the Beast Mugabe. Stops him late in that fight. And the other reason why Ray thought he could beat Hagler, he's getting worn down. And look at the time frame, and look at the number of fights that Marvin had gone through. And you, like I, saw the same thing we saw. Ray didn't go in there to fight. Ray went in there to dance and move. But he pecked and basically outboxed and outquicked Hagler. I thought Leonard won the fight, too. Initially, watching it as a kid, cried my eyes out because my man, Marvelous One, lost. Right? But when I watched, and I watched him, I thought he got screwed over. But when you watch it over and over again, I watched that fight 6 times. And 5 of the 6 times, Leonard won that fight. Yeah, that hasn't changed. And then, like I said, Marvin, for a while, grew bitter. And then through time, I had a chance to sit with him. Oh, my God, I'll never forget it. 5 years ago up in Canastota, New York, at the Hall of Fame. He always would appear on Hall of Fame weekend. So here's the great Marvin Hagler. And I've spoken to the Ray Leonards of the world. I was with Ali. I've been with Tyson. I've been with all these guys. But here, I'm with my guy, I'm with Marvin Hagler. Well, my guy, he and Badisha Muhammad, they were my favorites growing up as a kid. And here I'm with Marvin Hagler, and I'm like a kid again. I'm sure you've had those interviews where you've interviewed the best and on the all-time greats as well. But there's always got to be that one or two that come across that you were like that you idolized as a kid, and then suddenly you revert back to being a little kid again. And I'll never forget Marvin tapping my leg and goes, "Come on, my man, you can talk to me." I told him and explained what I just said to you. I just remember I was a little kid watching you, a teenager watching you fight, and I'm this little white kid from the suburbs trying to devise ways. How am I going to cut at the time? How am I going to cut this big this big mess of curly hair so I can shave my head and be like Marvin Hagler. He laughed. That'll be my enduring memory of Marvin, by the way. Just him laughing at that.
Yeah. Well, see, that's and that's the thing about I love boxers. I mean, the times I hung out with Bernard Hopkins were classic. I love boxers because there's an honesty about boxers that I like, and I football. Yeah, that's true. We'll get to that. But Hagler, there's a couple of notable wins on Hagler's. Even before he got the limelight, he beat the great Sugar Ray Seals, who was the gold medalist in '72 in Munich, the only gold medalist that the Americans had, and everybody felt that had marked a decline in American boxing because although the Munich Olympics, Americans got robbed on a lot of levels at that Olympics. Let me just say that, I said that even though I was 10 years old when but they got robbed, trust me. But the thing about Hagler, I first saw Hagler's first major championship fight when he fought Vito Antuofermo on the same card, I think, as I recall, as Leonard and Benitez, okay? And I watched it. I was like, damn, I like this guy. This guy, bald head.
That's the one. He got screwed over in that, didn't he?
He got screwed in that fight. I was mad with him. And that was the one fight I can say that Hagler got screwed because he dominated Vito Antuofermo. I'm sorry. He beat him in that fight. And I like Hagler. When Hagler fought Hearns, I kept telling people, I was on the radio, I was doing sports down in Baltimore, and I told people, I said Hagler is going to win this fight in less than 5 rounds. I didn't know it was going to be like that. I didn't know that fight because they almost stopped the fight on cuts. Hearns hit Hagler. Hearns hit Hagler, hurt Hagler in a way I've never seen Hagler get hurt. He was the only guy.
Round. And then when he got cut, Marvin, we saw a different side of Marvin. Oh, it's still to this day the greatest one. It's up there with, and again, for your listeners, if you want to watch another amazing fight, Diego Corrales and Jose Luis Castillo. If you remember that, where Castillo...
Yeah, I remember. Oh, yeah, that was hell.
And then Corrales comes back, gets up, comes back, and knocks out Castillo. All in the same round.
Right.
So
that's boxing. I mean, and I gotta say that Marvin Hagler dominated, and that's why when they signed the fight, I was like, "Rail, you nuts? That guy's gonna kill you," because he killed Hearns. I mean, he straight whooped. Although Manny Stewart to this day maintains that somebody gave Hearns a leg massage. They weren't supposed to give him. I don't know if that's the thing.
Times, and I was like, man, come on, man.
Come on. I say the same thing. I mean, he got rocked. I mean, you when Hearns was flat on his back, you could see. I mean, Hearns' eyes went back into his head. Eyes went back into his head. I mean, he was, his brains were probably in a Soul Train scramble board. Like, okay, he's just trying to, his brains is, okay, we got to get it together. But Hearns was, Hagler just dominated that fight. And he dominated everybody he went up against. I mean, he fought against Benitez. He fought against Duran. And they were okay fights. I mean, Hagler's clear winner and all that. But the last 3 or 4 fights of his career were just like, even the loss to Leonard. I mean, I still say that, I saw that fight 5 out of 6 times. I mean, me and my friends, me and my roommates, when I got out of college, we went back and forth. We went back and forth on that. I mean, that was like, me and my best friend Warren just went. We were like, man, because I was for Ray Leonard, and I like Ray Leonard, but I thought in that fight that, even if you thought Hagler won, he didn't dominate Ray. That was the thing
And then, like I said, when I had a far more discerning eye as I got older, watching a replay of that fight. And again, Chris, I think, was it in 87? That was Marvin's last fight? I believe it was in 87.
It was 87.
It was in 87. It was April of 87. So again, 11 years since he had last lost, and then yesterday or Saturday, this time last week, Chris, or obviously a little bit later in the evening, where I'm getting a deluge of interview requests and this and that. I'm like, what's going on here? And a whole bunch of people were coming at me. You heard Hagler died. You heard Hagler, and I didn't hear anything. I didn't know anything. And then I went to I gave the Hall call, the Boxing Hall of Fame. They were seeing what we could do and how much the BWA can help them out. And we all, as a concerted effort, went into confirming this as best we can, because you certainly don't want to go public with anything like that unless there's some kind of confirmation somewhere. And one of our guys contacted Kay, Marvin's Italian wife, and she just said yes. She just said yes. He's passed away. So it was not an easy thing. God rest his soul. He's 66, and he's the definition of a man, definition of a freaking man. You don't come across them, any different than Marvin Hagler.
Yeah, and we got to end on that note because we're at the end of our segment, man. But because I wanted to ask you a little bit more about his fights with some of the local guys, but we'll take that up some other time. But Joe, thank you.
Well, and the Eagles are beginning, and we got our quarterback who's playing for another team. Yeah.
well, yeah, we got. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, no problem. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to 96.1 FM, not your AM WURD. The Chris Murray Report will be right back.
Hi, it's me, Gia Peppers. Tune in to More Than That with me live this weekend or catch the show wherever you listen to podcasts. This week, I'm talking to Kenya Barris, creator of Blackish and co-writer of the new Coming to America, as well as Judge Lynn Toller, television icon, author, and advocate. More Than That is brought to you by Bounty, Charmin, and Puffs. Visit png.com for more on their commitment to positive change. So I wanted to talk to you about how you grew up. What was your actual family structure like?
For the most part, growing up I felt like a very common Black experience. You know what I'm saying? I feel like we weren't rich. I don't think we were destitute in any way. But like the community, we all had the same. And I didn't really realize how much we didn't have until we moved and into a more integrated community. When I was like, oh, people's knives and forks match it, you know what I'm saying? And like plates match, you know, like things, you know, little things like that I see. But I was constantly surrounded, what I felt like, with definitely turmoil between my parents when they were divorcing and things like that. But in general, I felt a lot of love in my community, you know, I felt a lot of love in my family.
My mother was an emotional genius. She can go in a room and not say anything, and she could tell you where everybody is emotionally when you leave. And she taught me specifically, running your emotions is something you need to do as an independent study. And she taught me how to feel in a manner that did not allow my own instability and the instability of my environment to send me in a direction that I could have flown off the world. I just could have. And she was so intuitive that it didn't happen. And she raised my sister, who is very calm and assured and all that, completely differently. Everything she told me, she told Kathy the opposite, because she knew who her girls were.
If you haven't had the privilege to use ACAP's products, treat yourself. We made it easy for you to shop for good quality essential products with the help of local businesses such as cultural stores, convenience stores, gas stations, and local supermarkets. ACAP's, servicing the community since 1969.
Clark Roofing Company has over 30 years of quality roofing experience, providing exceptional customer service, honesty, and professionalism. Clark Roofing is a second-generation master roofer, installing top-quality roofing systems for commercial and residential properties across the tri-state area. For fast, dependable service, call 215-365-ROOF. That's 215-365-7663.
This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia.
Independent Black Media.
You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Independent Black Media.
Okay, we are back. And by the way, in the midst of all this, March Madness. I forgot to talk about March Madness. Last night, Ohio State and Purdue got knocked off in the NCAA. Purdue was a 4th seed. Ohio State was a 2 seed. And Villanova won last night. Villanova, everybody thought Villanova would be the victim of the 5-12 upset. And I'm glad Villanova won for a lot of reasons, because not only because they're a Philly area school. Jay Wright's probably one of the nicest people that I know in the business, and you know, one of the nicest coaches, coolest coaches that you could ever see in the sport, and from from that standpoint, I kind of always like to root for that. You know, I covered Jay Wright, and I'll always be honest, but you know, I covered Jay Wright and everything, but he's a class act. And by the way, Patrick Ewing is playing. I mean, he's coaching Georgetown, though. That's my kind of sentimental favorite, because we all remember everybody was a Georgetown fan, even the night they played Villanova. Everybody had a Georgetown jacket, thanks to John Thompson, and I'm so proud of Patrick Ewing. Although to the security guards at the at Madison Square Garden who didn't know who Patrick Ewing was and all that, I had to give them the gas face and whatnot. Like, come on, man. Come on. How do you not know who Patrick Ewing is?
Yeah.
Come on, man. A guy. I mean, to me, I'm gonna tell you something. You know, when CBS, before I get to John, I got you, brother. Don't go nowhere. But when CBS got the NCAA tournament, I was very skeptical, because I was at NBC, Dick Enberg, Al McGuire, Billy Packer. Oh, we tolerated Billy Packer, but. You know, but I always liked Al McGuire, because Al McGuire, even though he was a white Irish guy who understood the game from the street perspective, understood he was a New York guy, and he understood the game from our perspective. And that's why I loved Al McGuire, okay? and I thought I was really skeptical. But Georgetown and Carolina put on the NCAA. We're almost at the 30th anniversary, or was it 30th or 40th anniversary of that game? That was when Jordan hit the shot, and Freddie Brown threw the ball to the wrong man because he looked up at the big screen at the Superdome and thought that the Sleepy Floyd was flashing out and turned out to be James Worthy. But that was one of the all-time great games in Ewing, and I thought some of those goaltending, was just. I thought half of those calls were garbage, and Georgetown should have won the game in my opinion. But it happened. But I'm glad to see Ewing. They tip off at 12:15 on CBS. You want to see, I hope Ewing. I don't know. I think Ewing and them. This might be their last game of the season, but it's good to see that familiar face back. Now, on the line with us. Before we get to John Mitchell, who I'm going to keep for a little while, but before we get to John, we got Maurice from North Philadelphia. Maurice, what's happening? You
all right? Hey,
you rang.
How's everything? Yeah, I'm glad you
everything is everything.
Marvin Hagler. I'm glad you brought the Marvin Hagler history. Marvin was phenomenal, man. He's a phenomenal dude. And Sugar ducked him for 5 years. He wanted to fight Sugar back in 1980, and Sugar wouldn't fight him. But if you go back to that Tommy Hearns and Marvin Hagler fight, Sugar stood up in the middle of the fight and rubbed his hands and say, I can beat him. Go back and watch that fight. Tommy Hearns showed Sugar how to beat him. And that's why Sugar took that fight. But Marvin Hagler,
I think I would have. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Marvin Hagler fought Cyclone Hart and the Boogaloo Watts and that was Philadelphia fighters, the Billy Briscoe and that was Philadelphia fighters. That primed him for whoever came. That primed him. But the thing I didn't like, now, if you look at the stigma on Philly fighters, a lot of people try to make Philly fighters sparring partners and won't let them rise up in the ring. That's why Jimmy Young didn't get on too late. And Larry Holmes.
Jimmy Young beat Ali in that fight, and I'll tell you, and I'm an Ali fan. Jimmy Young won that fight. That's all I can say. I saw that fight. Jimmy Young won that fight, and that's a shame. But you understand the history of Marvin Hagler mentality?
Oh, yeah. I'm saying. Philly fighters going to get me ready where I need to go to. This is why he put all the top middleweights in Philly. And they primed him ready for that next echelon of fight, Roland, Juan Rodin, and the Italian guy that you called that he got a draw first. He came back and demolished him in the second fight.
Vito
Anaframo. Right. So them type of fights, Philly fighters got Marvin ready for them type of fights. And Marvin even went Mustafa Hamshaw. So, but they were great fights. And Marvin was a great fighter. He didn't turn out no fight. And he didn't really have to fight John the Beast Mugabe. Mugabe was never the same after he fought Marvin Hagler.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and the thing about it, he exposed Mugabe because Mugabe was this knockout puncher, and he had won a bunch of his fights by knockouts. But see, basically Hagler took him into deep waters and crushed him. I mean, I saw that fight. I was at a closed circuit fight. Although some of the undercards of that fight were also pretty good. One guy got carried out of the ring in that fight. I'm going to ask Joe about that. But that's the thing about Marvin Hagler. That's why I say, to me, out of all those guys, even though Ray beat him, and I think Ray fought the right fight against Hagler, I still say that Hagler was still the greatest of that era. I will say hands down. I got it. Go ahead.
I have one more question. I agree. I would like to know if you would do a historical black basketball on Philadelphia basketball. And
I would love to do
basketball
that.
Was an importance that Philadelphia was to the Big Five basketball here. Now, do you know where Villanova Original College was?
Villanova's original no. Where was Villanova at located?
It was at 4th and Lombard. They moved out of Philly.
It was at 4th and Lombard. Oh, I did not know this. So they were so their roots were in the city of Philadelphia.
Yes.
Okay.
They moved to the suburbs.
Yeah.
And the reason I say doing a historical thing on the Philadelphia basketball and how significant the Sunny Hill League was, because Sonny Hill had a lot of players that would go to the Big Five schools.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have that no more. So now you see the Big Five schools are struggling.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, they probably are. I mean, you know, and they I mean, like Temple used to, I mean, Temple, LaSalle, Penn, and, you know, even Drexel, even though they weren't a part of the Big Five. I mean, there was some good. You know, they're not there anymore. Right now, Villanova's there. They're on the stage, but you know, oddly enough, I would love to do that because I know people like Don Hunt and a lot of other people. Don Hunt wrote a book on the Big Five, and you know, like I said, God rest his soul, Jackie Shure knew that era as well. A lot of people knew. You know, a lot of people knew about the era. The Big Five was just a rich history, and I like to do that. I would like, you know what? Like I said, I would bring all those people on. I love to do that because I kind of wanted to start doing those types of shows anyway. I want to do something, you know, like I say, talk about the women in sports and all that as well. So let me, yeah. But I like I said, I got to move forward. But that's a great idea. Thank you for the call. So we have with us John Mitchell. We have my man John Mitchell, who's John Mitchell's on the show with me. I think I think he passed. I want to say he passed away a couple of months ago, or is he still? I mean, but that, like I said, Jackie was one of. Like I say again, that was one of the guys, you know, you would go to. Him and Don Hunt would tell you all the great stories about the Big Five and basketball in Philadelphia. And, you know, and it's a history not being from this area that I wish I was a part of and I would like to learn. So I can't say that I know everything. You know, and please, native Philadelphians, please forgive me. You know, I'm not from here, but I am always eager to learn because, like I said, I love the rich history of boxing and basketball in this town, and even football too. I'm a fan of history. So, okay, so John, I gotta say, we looked at, we talked a little bit. You're a huge Eagles guy, and we talked about Carson Wentz. You and I used to debate Donovan McNabb on Facebook every now and then, and I don't know. I mean, you know, Wentz says he had a tough time here in Philly. That Philly was a tough time. And I look at that. Forgive me if I see that with a bit of a jaundiced eye, because I don't think anybody ever had it tougher in this town than McNabb did. Some of the McNabb thing might have been, you know, McNabb had a little passive aggressiveness with him on some level, but McNabb took it like a man. I ain't gonna say he was successful. Didn't get a Super Bowl ring, you know, didn't get the ring. I get that. A lot of people are disappointed, will always be forever disappointed. Wasn't all his fault. But, I mean, what are your thoughts about how Wentz went out? You know, Wentz, everything you've read about or seen about him kind of engineering his own demise, not his own, you know, exit from the town. All the stories you read about him not necessarily, you know, being a good team player inside. What are your thoughts about Wentz's time here?
First of all, I enjoyed that conversation you all had on boxing, man, and we should get more of it. I'm just going to deviate for a moment. Do you remember the Frank the Animal Fletcher, John the Beast Mugabe fight?
I vaguely remember that fight. Yeah, I think I remember. That might have been a fight. I was going to say it might have been a fight that. Go ahead.
It's not the fight that I wanted to talk about, though. It's how NBA produced it, and this is just brief, and I'm sure somebody out there remembers it. It was the Beast versus the Animal, and in between rounds and during the commercial and leading up to the fight, NBC had a cartoon of a jungle, and they were beating African drums in the background, and they had pictures of animals. They had zebras, they had lions, they had elephants, and then, you know, popping up out of the brush. And then they also had the faces of Frank Fletcher and John Mugabe popping up. Well, it was one of the most racist things I've ever seen, and I'm sure I'm not the only person who remembers NBC doing that. So I just wanted to throw that in there. But just getting back to the subject at hand, I think that Carson Wentz, there's no comparing Carson Wentz to Donovan McNabb. They shouldn't be mentioned in the same breath. Carson Wentz, when he's asking for sympathy from wise and intelligent Philadelphia fans who know a frog when they see one. Lots of people gave, and I was a huge fan of Carson Wentz. In 2007, his second season, it looked like we had the next great quarterback. What was it, 30? He led the league in passing touchdowns and only played 13 games. He finished ahead of people like Tom Brady, Russell Wilson in touchdowns, and those guys played like 2 or 3 more games than he did. And that's why he got that money, the $128 million. But when they give you $128 million, and I'm so sick of people defending Carson Wentz for this, when an organization gives a quarterback that type of money, they give you that money because they say, look, we know that we believe that your talents can cover up the warts. The warts come from things like injuries to your offensive line, to your receivers, because we know that you're among the elite quarterbacks and can make things happen that other quarterbacks can't. And the 2020 season for Carson Wentz was a lesson in what he's totally incapable of doing, which is leading a franchise and living up to the money that he's being paid. So for him to say that things were tough in Philadelphia, I think that he made a lot of the things tough in Philadelphia on him. If you recall, when he got benched, which was actually about in 6 weeks later than he should have been benched, Doug Peterson stuck with him for what it did. The organization stuck with him. When he left, his first week on the bench, and if you remember, I don't even think he dressed for those games, if I'm not mistaken. His first week on his first week on the bench was when that story came out from his people that he couldn't coexist with Doug Peterson and wanted out. And he ultimately got rid of Doug Peterson, who does, like him or not, does have a Super Bowl victory on his record with Carson Wentz sitting on the bench. So the Super Bowl coaches, winning coach is gone. You're supposed to be a teammate. Jalen Hurts gets his opportunity to start, and you take all the attention away by this article from Adam Schefter. And you know that if you follow the NFL and follow NFL reporting, you know that Schefter doesn't make stuff up.
He doesn't.
There's a story that you want out of town. So he made things, and this is after, by the way, you had irreconcilable differences with an organization that gave you $128 million, and you only demonstrated that you were elite during that 2017 season. The Super Bowl winning season, when you didn't win the Super Bowl. Granted, you went like 11-2, but that's since that season, he's been a mediocre quarterback. So I'm not a Carson Wentz fan to the level that many people are. I think, and follow me here, I think Carson Wentz wanted, and I told this to Stephen A. Smith yesterday when we were talking, that he wanted a form of what is perceived as affirmative action for black people. We know that affirmative action just requires many white organizations who, when left to their own volition, would absolutely ignore the presence and existence of black people and bypass us for opportunities. So affirmative action basically forces them to do what they don't want to do and consider us. Well, Carson Wentz wanted affirmative action for white quarterbacks. He wanted to get this money and not be challenged by Jalen Hurts for the starting job next season when his play on the field in 2020 clearly indicated that he was not up for the challenge. Clearly indicated he was not up for the challenge. And you got the money, but you didn't deliver, Carson Wentz. So, yes, we're going to make you come to camp and compete for the job that you believe you should be entitled to. So when he says that it was rough, this is Philadelphia. What were you expecting? You know, what were you expecting? You go to any of these tough markets. You go to Chicago. You go to Detroit. You go to a city that has very passionate. You know, New York has very passionate fans, and you underachieve. You chronically underachieve. Then yes, I have no stomach for what Carson Wentz did. I have no stomach for it at all.
So does this make McNabb look better in our history? Because let's face it, you and I debate even before we became these media stars. No, I'm just messing around. But I'm just saying that you and I felt that McNabb did a good job in spite of not having receivers and in spite of even his own. But every time he complained about something, every time he was upset, we considered him, you know, everybody said that he was weak, and I don't think he was. This is a guy that led you to 5 NFC championships. And he did it with minimal talent. They didn't give McNabb the kind of talent that they surrounded Carson Wentz with. And I say that. A lot of people.
You're absolutely right. No, you're absolutely right.
For saying that, but they didn't. I mean, and people. I mean, the last NFC championship game that when they lost to the Cardinals, one of my good friends I work with at the Tribune, McNabb is weak. He's just a weak. But I was just like, I watched that game. I watch enough football to know. I know that a lot of times you can play a great game and give a lot of effort and lose. I've seen that happen. That's almost a damn cliche in sports. You know, how many times have we seen guys put up 30-something points and still lose the game? I mean, you know, I saw Mark Macon in 1991 play a great game against North Carolina, and Temple still lost. I mean, you know, that kind of thing. And people, man, you know, a couple of friends of mine that I know in Sports Talk Radio did a show, and they just went all over McNabb. I was like, did y'all watch that game? Did you see? I mean, McNabb couldn't cover Larry Fitzgerald and everything.
Right.
They lost the game.
Right.
And they point to a pass that he missed to I forget the tight end's name to play. He missed that he missed on he just missed him on this play. That happens. But then on 4th down, nobody talked about the fact that it was a Curtis Conway. I forgot the name of the receiver. But dude dropped the ball on 4th down, and I'm hearing on Philadelphia Talk Radio, it's all McNabb's fault. I'm like, wait a minute. Wait a freaking
minute. You have to understand, and I know you know this, we've had this conversation before. Sports Talk in Philadelphia is basically white guy barstool talk and conversation. How often have you heard an African American, unless he has played for the Philadelphia Eagles, been during the drive time on either of the Sports Talk radio stations? That's not acceptable in their eyes. From what I've seen, they're not really interested in having African Americans in prime slots. That's just the way it is. And this is why they can look at a Donovan McNabb throwing the football to a James Thrash, a.k.a. James Trash. They can look at Donovan McNabb throwing the football to a Todd Pinkston, a.k.a. Todd Stinkton. They can look at McNabb having Freddie Mitchell be a bust. But that's all on Donovan McNabb. Their bad personnel decisions fall on Donovan McNabb. So when you compare Donovan to Carson Wentz, I think Donovan McNabb has had a Hall of Fame career. All those trips to the NFC Championship game he always had a good defense. The Eagles always came with a good defense. but they always came with questionable receiving cores. And Donovan still made things happen. They ran the ball better then and more consistently. But the best receivers always tended to be the guys out of the backfield. You had nobody who could really stretch the field until you got T.O. And the organization couldn't hold that together. You know, you had T.O. for one season, and they got to the Super Bowl. You know, so make a concerted effort to get a receiver who can play. And I heard Steph Jordan say it the other day. They have been trying to draft a stud receiver for 10 years, and they have failed. Howie Roseman has failed to do this. You know, Howie Roseman has made, and their decisions fall on management. You know, they draft a DK Metcalf when they should have drafted a J.J. Whiteside. They drafted Jalen Rieger, who we may or may not be able to play, but we don't know that because of how wretched Carson Wentz was last season. We don't know if Jalen Rieger can play or not. But the one thing we do know is Justin Jefferson was on the board from LSU when they drafted, and they didn't make that pick. So, you know, the front office has to step up and do something correct, and they haven't done that. So, you know, again, Carson Wentz is going to a better situation. He's going to a team that is committed to running the football. The narrative develops, as it so often does, to coddle some of these white quarterbacks that, you know, he's going to, you know, when Frank Reich left, so did the spirit of Carson Wentz. You know, so what that tells me, that's a false narrative, and it's a narrative that media people concoct over donuts and coffee in media rooms, but it's not real. It's not reality. If you're an elite quarterback, you know, when your quarterback coach leaves, or the coach that you like, do you all of a sudden become extraordinarily mediocre, or in Carson Wentz's case, extraordinarily miserable? That's what he was last year.
Hold that thought, because I got to go to break. But I like to address that with you, but hold that thought. We got to go to break. So when we come back, we're going to deal with that, because you make a great point there. Are you listening to 96.1 FM, 900 AM WURD, the Chris Murray Report? Will be right back.
Philly Peace in Progress nonprofit organization was started to create a positive change and bring awareness to the growing drug and gun violence in Philadelphia. Philly Peace in Progress is looking for volunteers to make a change with organized programs, mentoring, problem solving, conflict resolution, and more. If you are interested, email Nelson at phillypeaceinprogress.com or call 267-529-7255.
Black Broads Abroad is a new show hosted by yours truly, Felina Jean. I've been an expat for over a decade, living across 4 continents, 6 countries, with travel to over 40 places in between. My show will feature spotlight interviews of compelling Black women who have also said peace out to the divided states and are thriving abroad. From Iceland to Istanbul, Madagascar to Mogadishu, and a host of other countries. Tune in every second Sunday of the month from 5 to 6 p.m.
This Women's History Month, WURD Radio is proud to celebrate Black women innovators and trailblazers who have helped us all level up.
Welcome to Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. Get into this episode where we explore the art and artistry of American-born French entertainer, French resistance agent, and civil rights activist Josephine Baker. In New York City during the Harlem Renaissance, she performed at the Plantation Club and in the chorus line of the groundbreaking and hugely successful Broadway revues Shuffle Along in 1921 and The Chocolate Dandies in 1924. Baker was billed at the time as the highest paid chorus girl in vaudeville. Goddess Jo sailed to Paris in October of 1925 to open La Revue Nègre. She became an instant success for her danse sauvage, what we call the banana skirt dance. I guess, well, everybody called it that. Josephine Baker was the most successful American entertainer working in France. So that's it for this episode of Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. See you next episode.
This Women's History Month vignette was brought to you by Comcast and Thomas Jefferson University and Jefferson Health.
You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media.
Okay, we're back. First half score, though, before I go on. Colorado is up 11-7 over Georgetown, 13-14 to go in the first half of the East Region first round game played at Hinkle Fieldhouse on the campus of Butler University in Indianapolis, is where I think the movie Hoosiers was made in that venue, I think. But anyway, John, you brought up an interesting point regarding Carson Wentz and the personnel decisions and during the McNabb era. And I think that, it's an interesting thing that I thought that they did their level best to give Wentz every receiver, although, like I say again, the picks of Zay Arcega-Whiteside and not going after Justin Jefferson, is the personnel decisions, and I even gave Howie credit. I gave Howie credit for the Super Bowl. I mean, they for that 1 year, I think I thought that Howie made all the right moves. But recently, oh my God! I mean,
you know what he did, Chris? He took advantage. I give him credit. He's a numbers cruncher, and he did a great job with 1 year contracts that year. Particularly in the running game, he brought in Blunt. They picked up at the trade deadline the kid from Miami. I can't say Ajayi. Right now. Right. And people forget oftentimes that, and the Eagles function better. And Carson Wentz, because Carson did show us a high level of talent. And at some point, you have to find out where that talent went. Somebody has to be held accountable for that. And was it personnel or was it coaching? I think they got away from the running game and didn't give him that style of running game. But the year the Eagles won the championship, they that running back combo along with Corey Clement was dominant. Their dominant offensive weapon. They rushed like 180 yards. Clement caught like 9 or 10 passes for 100 yards. And that was their format. And let's not forget that the offensive line was at its peak. The Eagles' offensive line was at its peak. But what will they? I mean, we should go back. What was your question? Your original question? I'm sorry, Chris.
No, I was going back to the conversation that Wentz was given all these weapons, McNabb was not, and people vilified McNabb near the end of his career more so than they are with Wentz. I think that people really tried to pump Wentz up. I mean, and the thing about it, I like Wentz. I like the fact that he went to North Dakota State. He was from a 1AA school, and you like to see guys out of that situation, do well. You and I both undergrads went to 1AA schools. I saw John Taylor play in college. We saw guys like Jerry Rice and Willie Totten. Those guys. It's always good for those guys to succeed. Neil Lomax, who went to Portland State. Those from those schools, it's always good, because I don't buy into this big time, this Mel Kiper, he has to go to a big time school. And the thing is, and I thought that the Eagles did everything they could, and I didn't hate on that. I was like, okay, I'm glad you're doing that. You didn't do it necessarily for McNabb, but okay, do it for this guy, and to see him fall apart at the seams like that, that's the thing. And I kind of question his mental toughness. When's his mental toughness? I question the guy's toughness because, and you mean to tell me through that kind of adversity, I still remember when McNabb got hurt and they were talking about replacing him with what was it, AJ? What was that guy? They were talking about, the Eagles don't need McNabb until the Giants exposed in the last game of the 2002 season how much they missed McNabb on the field. But the thing is, is that, you know, this is the thing. I mean, people pumped him up in this town. And they made him out to be, I hate to use the racial term, great white hope, but that's what they pumped him up to be. And and a lot of people, which is why our colleague Joe Sanliquito, who wrote something, you know, critical about.
Joe opened it up completely. Joe opened it up completely about who Carson Wentz is as a person. He's a good person, but as you know, and I don't want to overstep those bounds because he is a good person, and I like Carson Wentz, but I want my quarterback to be, you know, to put on the executioner's mask and get it done on Sundays, Mondays, and Thursdays. And I think people, this is kind of a lesson in media for people, particularly for African Americans, to be a part of. Carson Wentz got this free pass from the media. And you know what it was? We heard repeatedly that we never heard that he wasn't focusing on the job at hand. With Carson Wentz, the narrative that was concocted by our colleagues in the media was that Carson Wentz is trying too hard. He's working he wants to win so hard. That's false. Because all athletes who get to that point work extraordinarily hard to get it done. They all want to win. They all try their best. And Allen Iverson was the same way. Allen was always, whenever you heard Allen, it was, you know, his posse is doing this, his posse is doing that. Allen's in the Hall of Fame, you know.
Yeah.
So Allen didn't win a championship because the 76ers didn't put the players around him to take him to that level. You know, they had a legitimate number one star in Allen Iverson, you know, who's arguably, he and Isaiah Thomas are arguably the two best guys in the league, 6'1" and under. You know,
right?
So we heard this ridiculous narrative that Carson Wentz was trying too hard, and I'm going back to watching Carson Wentz throwing this ridiculous pick six against the Cleveland Browns when the option was the receiver 10 yards down in the flat. Jalen Hurts, as a matter of fact. That wasn't trying too hard. That was not having the mental fortitude to execute on the field. But and again, taking people back to what media, American sports media is about, particularly from the newspaper era, it's like not good etiquette to criticize the white guy for not having mental toughness. You know, he can never be a great athlete. So you can't. So he has to be trying too hard. So they completely flipped the script on what we were seeing from Carson Wentz. He wasn't trying. And the only person I've heard address it honestly again, and he's my favorite on TV locally, is Seth Joyner. You know, Seth Joyner said maybe this guy just doesn't mentally, he's not tough enough. Now, we heard that from, you know, we heard that about Donovan, you know, when's he coming back? And Donovan suffered, you know, severe injuries, you know, and still came back without talented players and still got it done, you know. But as soon as Donovan, it's funny because remember Donovan started questioning Carson Wentz about 2 years ago, and he got criticized for that. He got criticized.
People came after him.
You know, as if this guy who played football at the highest level in college, as if this guy who's a Pro Bowl, All-Pro player can't be critical of a guy who he sees deteriorating, who's won nothing.
Right.
So that's
people kept telling McNabb to shut up. Go ahead.
Yes, shut up. We don't want to hear from you, bro. You know, but now look at Carson Wentz. What has Carson Wentz left the Eagles with? The highest salary cap hit in the history of the NFL. That's what you're left with. So if you're an Eagles fan and you're wondering why they're not doing anything in free agency, because of what Carson Wentz did to them. He rolled the kitchen. The heat in the kitchen got entirely too hot for Carson Wentz, and he crumbled. And now, you know, people create excuses for him. Like, it's funny when I watched the debate between Max Kellerman and Steve Stephen A. Max is right. And Stephen knows he's right. But Stephen has to play the foil. You know, you get good television doesn't make the two people agreeing on the same point.
Right. You got to have some disagreement, which is why when you remember Jason Whitlock and I got into Comcast.
Well, he doesn't count. He is a boot-looking buffoon. He doesn't count.
Yeah. He does. You're right about that, and you know from that standpoint. But see, that's the thing that I and me and my lovely wife we all talk about this. I kind of thought, and I still feel this way, and even people that we know and respect. I mean, a guy who was once the host of this, who hosted a sports show on this station. You know, people went. I mean, I can't tell you. I'm sitting here watching this stuff, and I wasn't necessarily. I mean, there are times when I was like, "Come on, McNabb, you got to do this." You know, I always felt that McNabb could take over games if he really wanted to. But
he did.
But the thing,
he often did.
And he often did. And I wish he would have done. I mean, to my satisfaction, I wish he would have done it more. But that's debatable. We can debate. You and I can debate that all day. But the thing is that the fan base, I hope the fan base now will respect what Donovan did. No, he didn't get the Super Bowl, but that wasn't all his fault. But, you know, here's this guy who hadn't won anything, and they were basically anointing him to be the next guy. And unfortunately, Nick Foles, like I said, and I'll always respect Nick Foles. Nick Foles did win. And Nick Foles was part of the players. The guys loved playing for Nick Foles. They didn't feel that way about Wentz. And I think that maybe, I should bring Joe back in on this. Did people, and I got to go to break now. I'm going to come back here to break. But I have to wonder if we can stay on this question. I think folks prematurely made him, the end all be all, and he hadn't won anything yet. So, and people to this day, they trash McNabb because they didn't win a Super Bowl. And they tell him to shut up. Oh, McNabb, sit down. You're being a bitter old man. Well,
Donovan arguably had a Pro Bowl, had a Hall of Fame career. Donovan McNabb could have been with the personnel that took Jim Kelly to those Super Bowls and been just as effective.
Right. I would say so.
Maybe even more.
That's a good. Hold that thought, though. We'll be right back. Our last segment. Listening to 96.1 FM, 900 AM WURD, the Chris Murray Report. Will be right back.
WURD Radio Digital Tip of the Week with Stephanie Humphrey.
I'm your Tech Life expert, Stephanie Humphrey, and this is your WURD Digital Tip of the Week. With over 750 million users, LinkedIn is the world's largest professional social network. Whether you're looking for a job, trying to find paying customers for your business, or just looking to expand your network, LinkedIn is the place to do it. Here are a few tips to make the most of the platform. It might sound simple, but make sure your profile has a picture. You'll get 20 times more engagement than if you leave it out. Try to include keywords relevant to your industry in your profile info, and make sure you customize your connection requests before you send them. Get more career tips right here on WURD and stay connected with us at WURDradio.com.
The WURD Digital Tip of the Week is brought to you by Comcast NBC Universal.
Okay, Her's new fire potato chips and cheese curls, they are spicy. Whew, they're hottest snacks yet. Hold on. Whew. But it's not just heat. There's some nice sweet and savory stuff going on too. Ooh, there's that heat again. It burns, but it burns so tasty. Ooh, that's hot. Find Her's Fire Snacks at your store today. Whew. Taste the flavor, feel the heat, break out the Her's.
Hey, WURD family, Reverend Leroy with a boss good recommendation for Clark Roofing. I found them to be a solid business, honest, dependable, fast, and clean workers. Mr. Clark stands by his work. Call him at 215-365-7663.
Call Clark Roofing and ask for second-generation master roofer Calvin Clark. Clark Roofing professionally installs a variety of roofing systems for your home or businesses. Call Clark Roofing at 215-365-7663 or visit their website
at clarkroofingpa.com.
Tune in this Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. for the Islam Today show with a perspective on moral guidance and Islamic principles and values.
Livelihood, WURD Radio's new initiative, connecting Black Philadelphians with jobs, entrepreneurship resources, small business development information, and financial literacy tools. Tune in to WURD Radio for our weekly livelihood segments in every weekday show. For a full schedule, visit wordradio.com/livelihood. For more information on livelihood, visit wordworks.com. That's WURD-WORKS.com. You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent Black media.
Okay, we are back. So like I said, so Wentz leaves town and he's now with the Colts, and I hope he's successful there. Let's say that. But I want to talk a little bit about Jalen Hurts because the Eagles have been kind of halfway. On the one hand, Lurie says that Hurts is their guy, but of course, as you know, there's this draft, and the Eagles have the sixth pick. The Eagles have the sixth pick, and in this draft, and I'm wondering if they're going to get a quarterback. They might draft Justin Fields. They might draft Trey Lance, who also went to North Dakota State, although I don't know how fans would feel about another quarterback out of North Dakota State. Let's not do that one. But at the same time, it's kind of like it's kind of like a situation where you don't want to see that. But I think that if anybody is a real gamer and all this other stuff, if anybody that a lot of people dismiss Jalen Hurts as his performance near the end of the year. He only completed about 52% of his passes, and a couple of other shows that I've been a part of in this town basically said, well, we're kind of skeptical of him. And in my view, I think Hurts, given the right, if he works his butt off, because all reports are saying that Hurts is a gym rat, and Hurts is this guy. And I think that not having OTAs last year, not having the real training camp, which I think may change a little bit as we get the vaccines for COVID, and I hope people will get vaccinated, myself included. I'm wondering what's going to. I think he could be the real deal. I do. Maybe he's not as talented as, say, Deshaun Watson. If they bring Watson, it'd be interesting to see if they would bring Watson in here. Howie Roseman indicated that he would move heaven and earth, and I'm paraphrasing, but I'm saying, using the term, he'd move heaven and earth to get Deshaun Watson. I don't know if he will, but what about Hurts? Can he be that guy? Can he be that guy? And I'm not saying it because he's a black quarterback, but can he be that guy? He may not be.
I don't know if he can. I don't know if he can be that guy, nor does anybody else. There's just simply not the body of work at the end of the season. What did you get? 4 starts last year? 3 starts last year?
Yeah, 3 starts. Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to make that evaluation. What you can say is that the Eagles. It is how bad that division is. The Eagles removed him from the game deliberately to keep from beating the team, the Washington football team that was in a must-win situation to make the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken. I think it came down to that last game. And the Eagles felt that they would have won that game. And the reason they lost that game, let's be quite honest, was to move up to get the 6th pick in the draft, which I completely agree with them. If I could add that.
I don't. But go.
At that point, that team was rotten. I don't need an ethics conversation. It's a business, and you got to move up and potentially get a better player. And as a fan of the Eagles, who has covered them, I thought that was the right thing to do. But getting back to Jalen Hurts, I don't know how you can dismiss Jalen. You can't dismiss him outright because then it looks like, once again, your front office has made a miscalculation because, remember, they drafted him in the second round. You know, so and I remember Roseman and Peterson doing a long press conference about how they are a quarterback factory. It was mostly Roseman talking that. And so if you draft this guy as potentially a future starting quarterback, even if he's seen as a project, to now say to draft another quarterback this year is basically saying I'm writing off in 2021 the guy that I said was a legitimate NBA quarterback or had the potential to be a legitimate NFL quarterback in 2020 because I drafted him in the second round. So if you're going to draft him in the second round and now you're going to draft another quarterback, you know what? Let's keep it simple. If Jamar Chase is on the board, let's draft Jamar Chase. If Devontae Smith is on the board, let's draft Devontae Smith. If Kyle Pitts, who's a Philly guy, is on the board, let's draft that guy. Let's not draft a guy from Peanut Brittle College somewhere and say this is our guy because I want to show how smart I am, Howie Roseman. Let's do that. And how about this? Let's get the right side of the offensive line, which is, when healthy, Lane Johnson and Brandon Brooks. This is as good as any right side of the offensive line in the league. So you get that back. Let's give the football to Miles Sanders, who averaged 5.2 yards per carry, and not give the ball to Boston Scott as much as we did last year. Let's use the more elite player to play to his potential. Let's do some of those things, and then because when you draft a quarterback, now if I had the number one pick in the draft, I'm taking the kid from Clemson. I'm okay with that. You know, I've seen enough from him. But pro people misevaluate talent as well as anybody else. For instance, let's look at the quarterbacks who were drafted ahead of Patrick Mahomes. Let's look at the quarterback. I mean, granted now, Deshaun Watson is in hot water or has some legal issues, to say the least, in front of him. But why in the name of God would you draft Mitchell Trubisky in front of him after the way you saw this guy play and beat the legendary Alabama football teams? What? Well, I know it because there is in the back of everybody's mind that our quarterbacks still must be white and that our quarterbacks must be 6'4", and that our quarterbacks must ride on a white horse and wear a white hat. That's still subconsciously in the minds of some of these front office people, you know?
Yeah, and I would agree with that. A place like Chicago is one of those towns, you know, and we know this in Chicago, is one of those towns that think along those lines. New York is the same way. And so from that standpoint, yeah, I mean, you know, you see that, and I don't understand that. And then I said Lamar Jackson was drafted in what, in 8? Was that 2000? That was 2018. So that's not the same.
And who drafted him? Who was the general manager? You're the Baltimore fan. Who made that pick?
Ozzie Newsome.
Ozzie Newsome. There you go.
And so,
do we think Baltimore regrets that pick, even though he has some things that he has to get better in this game? But I digress.
No, they don't regret it. But see, that's the thing. Like, how's Mitchell Trubisky? See, this is the thing where, like, you take Jalen Hurts. Given his struggle in college, I saw Jalen Hurts at Alabama. He did win the national championship through 16 touchdown passes against 7 interceptions, right?
Right.
He won the national championship against Clemson. I think it was against Clemson. Against Clemson? I think it was against Clemson. And so he won a national championship, but then he loses his job in the middle of the Georgia game, pretty much, and I say even, and to a better quarterback.
And he deserved to be benched for that game. He did deserve to be benched.
Yeah, absolutely he deserved to be benched for that game. He did, because he was struggling. But, you know, but then the next year, he took his demotion like a man. This is the character thing.
Right.
Took his demotion like a man, came back when Tua went down in the SEC championship, won that game for them, and then he goes on to Oklahoma and takes another team. And I'm telling you, if he has the right pigment of skin, and I know people hate for me to bring up race, but if he has the right, he'd be like, oh man, this guy is a hard worker, and I almost got.
You know what they be saying about him? He fell down, but he got up. If you look at Carson Wentz fell down almost 4 years ago, and is still reaching for the banister.
Right. And we got to wrap this up, but we got to go. And Jordan, thank you for reminding me. I had the best producer on God's green earth working with me. But the thing is, I'll say this just in parting. There was a reporter, who basically, and the guy's a great reporter, from the NFL Network, who questioned the man. He said, can he read defenses? They always ask that question of black quarterbacks.
As if he knows what he's looking at.
Right. That's the question. And I hope, like I say again, and then we got to go, man. But it's the same old thing. We hope Hurts gets to, whatever happens. I wish him the best. I wish Carson the best of success. So, ladies and gentlemen, we got to go. Absolutely. I got to thank John Mitchell, Joe San Laquito, my producer, Jordan Booth, Gratefully, some of you all who called in today, and for another great Chris Murray report. We will see you guys next week. Have a great day, everybody. Great weekend.